Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecini. We are presented by The Athletic today. Jared Weiss is in the building for the first part of what's going to be a two-part episode, doing bold predictions for the NBA in 2022-23. This one's going to go about an hour. I literally can't let it go past an hour because I'm recording another episode here right after. But that's what's exciting. So we're going to get hot takey. We're going to get bold, at least by this show's standards. And we're going to have some fun. Jared, our intrepid beat writer for the Boston Celtics, does some national stuff for The Athletic. What's going on, buddy?
I'm excited because I'm one of those people that really likes to hedge and ride the fence and not say anything too outlandish. Right? So I'm not allowed to do that here. It's perfect.
I know, right? Like I felt like mine were... There's a couple that I think are like, oh, wow, there's like no way I can get out of this, right? Whereas there's one where I'm like, oh, yeah, like this is a little bit hedgy, but I kind of dig it. Because there's one that's like, there's not really a way to judge it, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But how are things going on your end? Is everything good?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's really happened so far with the beat I usually cover, so I'm just kind of bored, just waiting for the season to start pretty much.
I figured, just... Not a new coach, not drama happening in every corner. I mean, yeah, it's fine.
It's fun. I mean, you told me come up with 3 bold predictions, and I'm having trouble coming up with a third. I guess I might as well just give off a Celtics hot take at this point, or maybe we could make that a bonus prediction. But yeah,
love it.
I think what I'm excited about. I mean, obviously, it sucks all the stuff that happened with Boston, from the injuries to the coaching situation, but at least it's a little bit more unpredictable now. At least there's more to look out for, because I felt like this was going to be, it was just a matter of, are they going to be great or are they going to be the best team in the league? And now there's a lot more to wonder about. So I guess we'll have to make a bold prediction about it.
Yeah, I dig it. The good thing is that, they don't have a lot of depth, but they did go out and get Malcolm Brogdon. They have some backcourt depth now. It's just, what do they do in the front court? That's kind of the question. We'll talk about the Celtics later, probably, I would imagine. So let's get into this. Let's just kind of dive in. We're going to go back and forth. I'll go first in terms of mine. And then you'll go, and then I'll go, and then you go, and then everything like that. And we're just going to have fun with this. So my first bold prediction, I can't remember what I said on the win total over-unders podcast for the Philadelphia 76ers. I believe that both Robbie and I were pretty strong in terms of thinking the Philadelphia 76ers are going to go over their win total. I'm going even stronger here. I think the Philadelphia 76ers finish with the best record in the Eastern Conference, and Joel Embiid wins his MVP award finally and gets it done. Jared, I guess this isn't like wildly bold, but like to go as far as to say first in the East, Embiid, MVP, I feel like I'm like parlaying multiple things here to where it gets bold in a hurry.
Can I give you my first bold prediction?
Yes.
I pick the Philadelphia 76ers to finish with the first seed in the East and Joel Embiid to win MVP. That was my exact first prediction. I guess
that's
it can't
amazing,
be too bold, right? If we all agree on it, I don't think it's not a terribly hot take, especially with the Celtics situation, and we know the Bucks are not gunning for the 1 seed. But yeah, that was the first one I thought of when you told me to come up with it. It's just like Philly is like, Embiid is pissed he didn't win MVP last year. I think he has the stamina and obviously the game to go out there and hit that other level. And it's really him and Luka, I feel like, are the 2 guys that are lined up as the preseason predictions everybody's got. So he's already primed for it. He comes out with a strong start. He immediately seizes the mantle as the front runner. And I was just going through their roster yesterday. They're like 13 deep with rotation players. They have kind of like every option that they could possibly need. And I feel like their starting lineup is pretty well balanced now. I think Maxi's going to take another leap. One of the ones I was toying with was, should I predict Maxi makes All-Star this year? I really think there's.
I thought about
chance.
it.
Yeah, I guess maybe a second layer bold prediction here is that Maxi's their second leading scorer, because I'm really optimistic about Harden just like taking, leading back into just being the point guard and really just taking what comes to him and feeding Maxey and Embiid as much as possible. But they have everything balanced out right, that you could definitely see them being the ones that scrape out the most wins in the regular season.
Yeah, the depth and the leap that Maxey has clearly taken this preseason. I mean, Tyrese Maxey has looked like the breakout guy maybe of the NBA season in 2023 this preseason. And you can make the case that Tyrese broke out last season, but he looks like the all-star breakout guy in the preseason right now, and looks like the guy that's going to take the leap from, okay, he was the number 3 option on the Philadelphia 76ers last year, to being like a legit potential all-star candidate. If he is just going to knock down shots in the way that he is capable of, and he showed last season, and he's going to keep shooting over 40% from 3 while being attack oriented and physical and strong as a driver, having a terrific floater game, being a good on-ball defender, there's just a lot there. They just run 4 deep in terms of like top 50 guys in the NBA, if that's who he is, because then you're going to talk Joel Embiid, obviously a top 5 guy in the NBA, James Harden, who I would imagine will look better a season out of having gotten to Philadelphia, clearly looks to be in better shape than what he was last season. And then I just wouldn't forget Tobias Harris. I mean, Tobias Harris sliding into a 4th option. I don't know if he's the best 4th option in the NBA, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of one better given the way that his game plays off of other players. I love the roster mix. And, you brought up the depth. Like, I'll give you the floor because I know that you want to talk about, this being your bold prediction as well as mine. Their depth is really strong. They did a great job this offseason building out that bench to where I think they're going to be able to withstand some injuries and just the general attrition that occurs throughout the course of the regular season.
I'm just excited about DeAnthony Melton. He's someone I've always really liked, and took a little while for the league to catch up to him. And he's that kind of combo guard that fits into a team that really just needs him to be a corner spacer and then a bit of a slasher from the elbows. But I feel like he's someone that's going to give them so much utility, and is pretty much going to be what they wanted Danny Green to be for them. But I could see him staying healthier, I guess. And so just being able to slide him in there on top of everything else they have, I just feel like that was the icing on the cake that kind of takes him to that next level.
Well, and the PJ Tucker move too. I mean, you go out and you get DeAnthony Melton, who's just like chaos, right? Like that's the best way to describe him. Like, he's a perfect complement to James Harden because he completely will change the style of play. If James Harden's off the court and DeAnthony's on the court, you're going to have to just adjust to something new that you haven't seen when James is on the court. And honestly, like, you can make a case that it works with James on the court and just, allows James to maybe take a offensive possession off because DeAnthony's streaking down the court trying to finish in transition. He's going to get a little bit of a break, which is what James probably needs at this point of his career. Just, anytime you can get him just a mini on-court blow where he doesn't have to run the offense and dribble the ball 12 times in a possession, that helps. And obviously having Tyrese there is really going to help that as well. Joel Embiid's the number 1 option here. That helps James as well. But then you get PJ Tucker as well. And it really, I think, balances out your ability to play big or to play small. Like, you really don't need to play Tobias Harris if he's struggling defensively. I thought Tobias actually got better defensively last season. Like, I thought that he's no longer a real liability on that end, but having that extra club in the bag, right, that is PJ Tucker, or you can play super physical with PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid in the front court. You can play super small and athletic with Melton and Harden and Tyrese Maxey. And then you could even probably go with like another small if you really, really wanted to, or you can go like super spacing with George Niang. Like there's a lot here. You can go small with like just pure chaos lineup of Matisse Thybulle and DeAnthony Melton. There are just a lot of ways that I think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be able to present problems for an opposing team athletically, for an opposing team in terms of skill with shooting, with guys like Niang, Maxey, Harden, who are elite shooters. Tobias Harris as well is a terrific shooter. And this is all without talking about Joel Embiid. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, we barely brought up Joel Embiid in this conversation. He is primed with the rest of this roster, in my opinion, to have his best season in the NBA. Like, the amount of space that he's going to have to operate, it's going to be kind of ridiculous, I think. And you brought up the idea of Joel winning MVP as well. So I'll kind of cede the floor to you on this. I mean, I think there's every reason to expect just an absolutely monster season from Joel Embiid.
Because honestly, there's a little less pressure on Joel in that, over the past few years, they've had this crisis every time he stepped off the floor, where whoever they put at the 5, they couldn't be the team they wanted to be. And now with Tucker, I actually think they should just use Tucker as a backup 5 more than Montrezl Harrell or B-Ball Paul. Just get him in there, have like an alternative defensive scheme to a little bit, and put other big wings like Niang and Harris. Get ball pressure guards out there like Melton and I guess you could do Tybal. I feel like you have enough.
Oh, you could do crazy lineups like Thibault, Melton, Tucker. Tobias Harris has to be out there for offense if you're going with like a second unit here. Someone has to be out there for offense with these lineups.
Yeah.
But and then your fifth guy can be like, I don't even know. Like, you can put out another one of the starters.
I guess one of Maxey and Harden should be out there most of the time, right? But either way, they have enough balance now that it doesn't feel like Joel has to dig them out of a grave every time he comes back into a game. And then between that and just they can finally put up 4 shooters around him that aren't sieves on the defensive end. You don't have to rely on Korkmaz anymore. Who am I forgetting? Shake Milton.
Well, in the opposite of that, you don't have to rely on Thibault anymore either.
Yeah. So they can finally have a 4-out spread around him. And if you double him, I mean, we saw when was it against Boston in the bubble in that first round? I think there was a sweep, right? But it was a close series. And that entire series was Embiid getting doubled and passing out of it. And there was usually some sort of weak link, or just, Tobias Harris, I think, had a kind of rough series there. But you just feel like this team is always going to have enough shooters out there that Embiid will always be able to ping the ball out to somebody that can hit a shot. And now they have more guys that can also attack closeouts that aren't just stationary shooters who you don't really trust to be able to score in the mid-range or the paint. They have a little bit more of that. So I don't know if they have enough that they're like a clear favorite, but they have enough that they're a sleeper 1 seed basically with Embiid at the helm.
Yeah, I mean, just like looking at the offense, this should be a top 5 offense in the league if Maxey is who you and I think he is now. Defensively, it should be a top 10 defense, I think, just because Joel should give you that relative floor defensively when he's out there. Look, I guess backup center is still like maybe the one thing that is a concern here. They like, I don't know, like, do you trust Doc Rivers to go small in the way that you and I would love him to go small? Do you trust Doc Rivers in general? Maybe that's where we go here. Is Doc Rivers going to tank this for us? Basically, is that the question?
I guess if he was ever going to trust someone to be his backup 5, I feel like PJ Tucker's going to earn that trust, right?
If you're going small, yeah. I just don't know if Doc's ever going to want to go that small. Doc struggled with playing Paul Reed last year. Like, B-Ball Paul is like 6'10", and he was worried about getting bullied with B-Ball Paul out there.
I mean, does he have any other option, right? I mean, PJ Tucker is their best is their best interior player, at least defensively, of all the guys that they have. Trez obviously is not. I mean, Doc knows Trez pretty well at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but Doc just knows Montrez. Like, that's the thing.
He's not gonna play with the fourth quarter. So, I mean, like Tucker, I just think Tucker he's such a smart player that he can kind of reinvent the way that you defend based on the situation. And sorry, I just got a message. I think just like Tucker, he can improvise in a way that none of these other backup guys can. And so he can make up for the size differential. He's so strong. He's got great hands down low. I think that they'll feel comfortable with whatever size he's making up for. He'll find a way to get strips, find a way to trap at the right moment. They can stunt and recover, stuff like that. So I think they're going to be fine.
I agree. I think they're probably going to be fine. I guess that, like, if I was coming up with one thing though that's going to stop this from being accurate, it's not the talent level. Maybe the second thing would be Joel Embiid getting hurt, because if Joel gets hurt, it's going to be a problem. Like, he is maybe the most indispensable player in the league at this point. Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic certainly has a case here, right? But they just don't even have a great backup option for Joel if it goes down. They have depth around Joel now, but I don't know that they have a great replacement option. But getting rid of the idea of injuries here, the thing that worries me most is just, can Doc Rivers get the most out of a team that is now fairly modern in the way that Daryl Morey has built them? And Doc is a Doc is a good manager of people, it would seem, and I think that is a critical skill with this team. I just hope that they get the most out of what I think their talent level is, because that just stylistically, that has often been a question with him.
And the thing we can't forget is, like, James completely threw in the towel in the final game of the playoffs. Like, that was horrendous. That was honestly one of the worst ones I've seen in a long time. So we can't forget that happens. And I feel like that must have been planned, but that audio of Doc talking to Harden, like, during training camp, that was streamed live on NBA TV. I just feel like there's no way they didn't know what they were doing on that one. Like, that they did a good job of setting up that narrative that James is fully bought in. We're not going to see that happen again. And hell, I'll buy it, because I want James Harden to win a championship. As frustrating as he may be, he is one of the coolest players that we've had in our lifetime, until he got really annoying watching him play. But I think now they've changed the rules enough that he can't really be as annoying of a player as he was earlier. And now it's like, I'm hoping this will be the year where you get to see him win, really truly utilizing his skill in the best way possible, rather than trying to game the system every single night. And that's going to be really fun to watch.
All right. So we both had the same first bold prediction. I'll give you the floor now, because I got to say that one. So what is your second bold prediction here?
I am going with Evan Mobley, NBA All-Star. It's time. And the funny thing is, when I was doing prep for the show, and I was like, all right, I think I'm going to go with that one, I was like, hey, I should listen to what other people are saying about Evan Mobley. And the first thing that popped up was you and Mark Schindler talking about this like 2 weeks ago. And so
Mark's all in. I'm like a little bit less in on this one, like, just because of the amount of talent surrounding them, or surrounding him in Cleveland. And I think I'm less in on the idea of him being all defense. Maybe he might be an all-star. But yeah, continue.
It's funny. I guess I could have gone with all defense instead of all star, but I already picked Bam Adebayo as my DPOI pick, so I guess I couldn't go with DPOI with him. But I feel like all he needs, I think you mentioned this too, like, he needs like 10 more pounds of muscle, and I feel like that just changes his finishing ability on the offensive ends. Where I mean, right now, if you lob it up to him, pretty much nobody in the league besides like Joel Embiid is gonna do anything about it. So there's already that. So he's getting a lot of just kind of rim run opportunities and ducking in from the dunker spot. He can get 10 points a game off of that, but I feel like his jump shot's gonna come around as the season goes on, and. Yeah. Just he's going to be able to pick up, I just feel like he can score 20 a night just off of easy opportunities on lob, short rolls, and pick and pops this year, especially if they can continue to utilize Jared Allen the way they were utilizing him last season. So I don't know how much the way their spacing changes because of the marketing getting moved, that really changes things for him. But he's just someone that he's evolved so much over the last couple of years, going from high school to college to the NBA. I just feel like he's going to take another huge jump, and he's going to have I love it when teams find an identity and then they get another offseason to really hone that identity. And that's what's going to happen here, especially with the way they use them as that kind of like floating middle zone on defense. I don't know if they're still going to do that. I feel like they still have the personnel to pull that off. But I think that now the narrative is there for him, where everybody's looking out to see how good of a defender he is. and the league is going to. I just think the public's going to be really blown away by how good his defense is and how much it'll probably improve into year 2. And his offense is going to come around that the counting stats I think will be there just enough that he could squeeze into that All-Star bid.
Yeah, I think that where I just like, look, I'm all in on Evan Mobley. I think he's like one of the 7 or so greatest assets in the NBA currently, right? Like, you know, whatever, 10, 7, 12. I don't know what the exact number is, right? But he's one of the great assets in today's NBA. He is, I just don't know what to expect from him offensively, because so much of Cleveland's offense was dictated around the idea of running that ball screen in the middle or side ball screen with Jared Allen and Darius Garland last year, or Jared Allen and Ricky Rubio before Ricky Rubio got hurt. And then using Darius as like a second side creator, using, Evan sometimes as a second side creator, using him as like a mid post, like bailout option from time to time. Like there was just, I wonder how many possessions there will be for him with Donovan Mitchell entering the fold, where I don't think it's going to be like Donovan and Darius take turns, right? Like I don't see that necessarily, because they both are really, really good at playing off the ball. That is something that both of them have a lot of experience doing. And I think that they're both going to move off the ball. Like this isn't like what we've seen from Trae Young previously, where like Trae kind of floats off the ball whenever Trae isn't involved in the primary action. Both Donovan and Darius actually like move and try to free themselves and are willing to get rolling. But like, Donovan is going to require more offensive possessions than Ricky Rubio did, or than at times Karis LeVert did. No, by the way, like Karis LeVert is still there, and Karis is still going to take a lot of offensive possessions because that's what he does, right? So I guess that like there's just a lot of offense to go around, and that is without including, Jared Allen catching 6 lobs a game. Right. And then getting 1 dump off in the dunker spot. I don't know. Like the way that their second units run is almost going to be the most interesting thing for me with them this year, because how much do they stagger like Evan into the almost like second unit a little bit more often and try to get him offensive reps that way, in order to try and, give him a chance to really explore the studio space and develop a little bit on that end, because that's their long-term upside, is Evan developing offensively.
Right. And like, for one, if they're probably going to want to go to some mid-post stuff throughout the game just a little bit, just so they can have some sort of passing hub for all their guards to curl off of. And I feel like he might be able to do that, although I feel like Allen probably gets that early on. And also just, he wasn't really utilized in open threes, whether it's trailing or pick and pop, as much as he could be based on what I think he can do. So if that's really coming along, which it seems like that's the hope, but obviously we haven't seen him out there in the preseason, so who knows. But if that's coming along, it just opens up a lot more looks that he wasn't getting last year. But I think one of the things offensively that I'm excited for is with the Euro foul rule now. I think that he's one of those guys where he's like he's a dangerous transition player, but he's not like a skilled transition player yet. So he's not someone that's going to put the ball on the floor, but he's someone that if they can't stop him from putting the ball on the floor, he's going to get a lot of finishes that way. So I feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunities for him to get a couple shots off in parts of the game where he wasn't really getting them last year. And also just, guys get to the NBA and they realize how hard it is to dribble the ball in the NBA, and then usually that second year they start to kind of figure it out. And last year it's like his dribbling, because when he was at the lower levels, it's like he was just so big he could basically dribble the ball over somebody's head if he had to. It's like as long as he wasn't dribbling right in the defender's face, he could pretty much get to where he wanted to. And last year,
and the physicality as well. Like that's the other thing. Like guys can really bump you and like stop your momentum. Nobody could really do that to Evan in college or in high school.
Yeah, so obviously if he's a little bit bigger, I think you mentioned like core strength. It's like I think it's just balance for him. Like he has such a high center of gravity that if he can just get a little bit more balance and make it, also just operate a little bit lower to the ground when he's handling the ball. I feel like he's pretty upright. So if he can get a little bit lower and then spring up more once he gets into like loading up to jump, he's just going to be able to score in so many more ways and get to the rim in situations where he was putting up those little jump hooks or turnaround jumpers.
Yeah, and by the way, like I give you 10% of skepticism on whether or not he can make the All-Star game purely out of role, not out of his own skill set. Like I still think he's going to average 19 and 9 and 3 assists. You know what I mean? Like I think he's still going to be just an absolute monster. And if he's averaging 19 and 9 and is one of the 10 best defensive players in the league, it's an incredible player. It's probably All-Star quality. It's just I don't know that the voters will do that. I guess that if we're talking about a wild card coming down to it, if Tyrese Maxey averages 24 points per game and Evan Mobley's at 19 and 9 with good defense, while Tyrese is shooting 50, 40, 85 or something like that, I don't know who the voters will respond more to, I guess, in that case.
And I mean, a lot of the time it's more picking someone to represent the team. And Maxey has to contend with James Harden while Mobley's contending with probably, I assume Donovan Mitchell will still be the favorite for the All-Star bid out of Cleveland. And then, it's he's competing with Allen, who made it last year, and Garland, who also stuck into it last year, but they're not quite established veteran stars enough.
I dig it.
Yeah, and I feel like veterans get preferential treatment over getting the All-Star nods just because people look at it as this guy is kind of on his way out from being an All-Star while the young guy is going to get it eventually. So that's why we're not going to give it to him quite yet, although, of course, Garland and Allen did get it last year.
Okay. Let's take one quick commercial break, and we'll be back with our final 3 bold predictions. Okay, we're back, Jared. Let's dive in. The Charlotte Hornets finish with a bottom 2 record in the Eastern Conference. So I'm basically picking them to be worse than 2 of Detroit, Orlando, and Indiana by saying this. I think that they look like a disaster in the preseason. They look like the worst team I've seen in the preseason so far, to be honest. And part of this is LaMelo Ball is out right now, and this is not going to go well for them while LaMelo is out, because I just don't know where they're going to get even anything resembling efficient offensive creation without LaMelo being able to drive transition play for them and being able to drive pick and roll screen, ball screen play for them. But I'm very worried about Charlotte. I am very worried about what that situation looks like this year.
It's funny. I was toying with the same one. I think the only way to make that prediction bold is to say that they're declaratively going to be worse than the Pacers, because they're so bad. They're so bad. I mean, I covered 2 of the games that they had because they played Boston, and my biggest thing is I just don't think LaMelo's good yet. I think that as far as
that's a
winning,
wild one.
I think as far as impacting winning, I really struggle to decide if he's a net positive player. As far as raw skill, different finishing moves, different passes, he's all-star caliber, sure, but he feels like a glorified Tony Roten on these tanking Sixers right now to me.
Oh my goodness, Jared.
What I think a more accurate one would be he looks like Trae Young before the Hawks figured out how to play around Trae Young.
I think that's a more reasonable take.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's more accurate.
But I think LaMelo being an all-star, I didn't like it last year. I don't like it even more now. I hope he's not an all-star yet. Not that I want to see him make 10 all-star teams in his career, but he's just not. He's not positively impacting winning that much right now. And that team has no cohesive identity, and they're putting the ball in his hands, and he's not really creating it. They have no identity. They have bad talent around them. Obviously, they're screwed because their second most talented player is, whatever that situation is right now with Bridges, maybe going to jail. So, and they're stuck in, purgatory with him. But so they're already screwed there. Their roster moves this offseason.
And just to be clear, look, I know that Miles Bridges, they still have the offer out to him and everything. I cannot imagine Miles Bridges playing a game this year, just straight up. That would be stunning to me if they do. If the NBA allows him to play a game this year while this court case is hanging over his head, I think it's kind of a disgrace. but
Yeah.
we'll see. I guess there is still a lot to play out there. I know that the court date continues to be delayed per Baxter Holmes at ESPN. So we'll see what happens there. I'm glad that you brought up the idea of them not having an identity. To me, it even goes like one step further than that. It's that they almost have conflicting identities, because LaMelo Ball and Steve Clifford seems like a disaster pairing to me. Steve Clifford teams tend to play down pace. We have quite a bit of evidence of Steve Clifford at this point. He has been an NBA head coach for, I believe, 8 seasons now. No, I'm sorry. This is his 9th season where he's an NBA head coach. And Steve Clifford teams do tend to get the most out of their talent level, but they tend to do it by playing slow, by playing, very solid, steady defensive play, by, playing really well rotationally and positionally on that side of the court. And his teams, I think, have never finished above, it's like 18th or 19th in terms of pace of play throughout his career. That just doesn't really work with LaMelo. So, like, to me, we can talk about not having an identity. To me, it's almost even worse, where they have like the coach's established track record of what his identity is in direct conflict with the star's identity of what the style of play he has always played is.
And also, they don't really have the defensive personnel on the perimeter to execute a Clifford type defense. So
also true. Yeah.
It's already a problem that they don't have the connectivity they need in their offense, and they're a team that wants to play in transition because they don't have offensive execution. Unless, I mean, when Gordon Hayward's out there, obviously that helps a lot, but he's inconsistently available. And also in the preseason, they haven't had Hayward out there for those first 2 games, so that obviously was a huge part of it. But like they're a team that needs to be playing abstractly. They need to be playing on the move against a defense backpedaling, and they probably aren't going to get the stops they need. Especially, they're not going to get the turnovers on the perimeter they need to get into leak outs as much. The recipe just isn't there.
Well, who I guess that I'm struggling with, like, who would you consider their best perimeter defender? It's Cody Martin, and then who? I guess is my question.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird because it's like Terry Rozier is a very skilled on ball defender, but awareness and persistence is a huge part of defense. And he's small, so you can only put him on certain guys. LaMelo could be a really impressive ball hawk at times, but same kind of issues about awareness and persistence. So, I'm struggling.
Is it Jalen McDaniels? Like,
I guess so.
Is it PJ Washington? But like PJ Washington's like a combo 4-5. I mean, this is not going to go well, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's Hayward who's really more of a help guy than a point of attack guy. I mean, they don't have that defender that you feel like. Well, I guess Miles Bridges was that guy, but they don't right now. They don't have anyone that you're thinking like I can put him in the starting lineup and put him on the opponent's best player and feel like at least we have that somewhat under control.
Yeah, I'm worried about the way that this is going to work. I guess is what I would say. I have some very substantial concerns about how any of this is going to function in a cohesive manner. I think that this is a team that's in play for Victor Wembanyama. I think not a team that's in play for like a real top 8 seed in the East. But we'll see. And I guess
they're probably going to start. They're probably going to start a fire sale in February, right? Like they have to start offloading some guys.
Maybe. Like Kelly Oubre would make sense as a guy to move. Like, here's the question: like, do you still like Terry Rozier as like a compliment for LaMelo? I don't mind it. I mean, he's a great shooter, and you need shooting around LaMelo as he continues to develop. So, like, do you move him? How much value does he have? Because he has, I think, after this season, something like 3 years, $75 million left on his deal. It's like he's probably like, $2 or $3, $5 million overpaid, something like that. I don't know. They need James Bouknight to be valuable, and I have some substantial questions on
I mean, yeah,
whether or
right
not
now,
that's going to be the
yeah,
case.
Book Knight's not even close to ready right now, so that's not
Yeah,
working for them. If
yeah.
let's say that they end up with the second pick of the draft, what would you do in that situation?
Scoot.
No, but
Wouldn't
do
even
you
think
put Scoot
twice.
and LaMelo together, or do you try to
Yes,
trade LaMelo? Okay,
I put Scoot and LaMelo together and fire Steve Clifford at that point, and find a coach that plays up tempo and goes.
yeah,
It's no disrespect to Steve Clifford. I think Steve Clifford's a great basketball coach. Like I just worry about if it's the right fit for this team. And maybe they're seeing it as like, we need someone that can come in and like instill this mindset of toughness and physicality and defensive identity into this roster. And maybe that will be valuable if that was to happen for those two. But I don't think it's the right schematic fit for actual wins for a roster unless Steve Clifford is going to play up tempo, and we just haven't seen that previously. It's just not, there's not a lot of evidence of that, I guess is what I would say.
fair enough.
Okay. Give me your third. This would be your last one, Jared. So give me your third bold prediction.
Third bold prediction is this one's too insane, but what the hell? I think the Orlando Magic are gonna get the 10th seed.
Whoo, I love it. Let's go.
I think they're in the play-in. Just because I feel like the bottom's gonna fall out a little bit closer than we think in the East this year, where like it's gonna be kind of another Pelican situation where one of those teams is gonna be able to sneak into that 10th seed. And the Magic have this confluence of talented players who are just kind of getting ready to be impactful, and really weird lineup combinations that I think a lot of teams are going to have trouble with, that I could just see them surprising teams throughout the week as the regular season goes on and just piling up like 37 wins for some weird reason. And that's like just enough to get them into the 10th seed.
I love it. I think I've talked about the Orlando Magic more than any team this preseason. Really? They're going to be one of the most enjoyable teams to watch, I think. This entire NBA season. Just the weird, like you said, the weird lineup combinations. This is like, I don't even know if they're going to get Jonathan Isaac back, and he makes the lineup combinations even weirder. What they need in order to do this is they're going to need Markelle Fultz to get back, because Markelle is the kind of guy that can give them stability at the point and allow them to get everyone involved and play the kind of tough defensive structure that they're going to be able to play with their size. Like it's just going to be with Wendell Carter, with Paolo Banchero. Like these guys are big. I know Paolo wasn't awesome defensively at Duke. He's just big, like for the 4 spot. Like he's going to take up space out there. Franz Wagner is a good defender. Markelle, Jalen Suggs, these guys are all really good defenders. You slide Cole Anthony into like a 6th man role. I think that makes Cole Anthony even better, just in terms of efficiency and allowing him to get better matchups. So yeah, no, I love this. I think it's a great take. So I will take this a step further. This isn't my third bold prediction, but I will ask you, which team are they most likely to make the play-in game over? So I'm going to read you the 10 teams that I think everyone kind of has there. The Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, the Toronto Raptors, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Chicago Bulls, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat, and then I guess that like it would be a combination of the Knicks, Wizards, I guess Charlotte, I guess, maybe Detroit, something like that. The 10th seed's a little bit more open, I guess, than I recognized. If you think that the Washington Wizards aren't going to be incredible.
I don't think they are, and the Knicks, I don't have a lot of faith there. So I was between Detroit and Orlando as my sleeper pick there. So I would probably say that the Knicks and the Wizards will be battling it out with them for that 10th seed on the last week of the season.
Yeah, no, I dig that. I think that's an interesting one, and it leads into my final bold prediction. It is about the New York Knicks. I actually really like the New York Knicks talent level. So when I say this, I almost don't know that Knicks fans are going to be disappointed, but I think that by mid-season, the Knicks embrace the youth movement finally and are willing to move off of some of these veteran guys that they just kind of have. Julius Randle, Yvonne Fournier, Derrick Rose, guys like that. It's been an enormous frustration, I think, for Knicks fans that guys like Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes last year haven't gotten the opportunity necessarily to be able to just rock in the way that, their draft status, what they've shown on NBA courts has portrayed at times. I think the New York Knicks are going to be forced, because of the young guys stepping up, to move into a bit of a different era and to move into more of a youth movement where guys like Jalen Brunson will obviously be the point guard. I'm not saying they move Jalen Brunson, but it's going to be guys like Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, all of those guys. Deuce McBride gets minutes. Jericho Sims gets minutes. Mitchell Robinson continues to get minutes. Like, I think that they have to move into those guys getting the Lions' share of things, as opposed to guys like Julius Randle, Yvonne Fournier, Derrick Rose, etc.
I'm worried about, like, you look at what their closing five is going to be. It's going to be Brunson, either Fournier or Grimes, maybe Barrett, Randall, and probably Robinson. That team just, I feel like, is going to be defensively limited on the perimeter, and
right.
I feel, especially with it, like, I just feel like if that closing five is struggling defensively in the fourth quarter, Tibbs is going to do something to break that up, and that's going to deflate their. And maybe he's willing to develop. I don't really think of Tom Thibodeau as a young player developer.
That's what makes it a bold prediction, Jared.
Right? It is very
the fact
bold.
that we're going youth with Tibbs.
Yeah, but either way, I feel like their win total is going to be deflated. They
might
to
be,
trade Julius Randle, and I don't know why they gave Mitchell Robinson that deal when they have Obi Toppin back there. I would have much rather let that money go elsewhere and try to make Toppin into a 5. But this team, it's another team where the identity, maybe they have more of an identity than like Charlotte, but a clear direction, not really.
Yeah, I do. I think that they can embrace a clear direction pretty quickly by going toward this youth ideal, right? Like they could very easily decide, we have a direction. We have our point guard that's going to develop all of these young guys. RJ Barrett, I think, he's just continuing to get incrementally better. Every time I watch him, he gets just a little bit better. Like right now, it's like the patience on drives that I think has gotten better from what I've seen in the preseason. Obi Toppin is like taking movement threes now, by the way. Like he's actually like shooting and knocking them down. Like I don't see a way they're going to be able to keep Obi Toppin off the floor, to be honest. Like he looks so good right now that I think it's going to be really, really hard for them to be like, oh yeah, we've got, Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle and X, Y, and Z. Like we're going to make sure that Obi Toppin only gets 18 minutes where he stands in the corner like he has for a season and a half up until late last season. I think that they're just going to have to play him. He looks really good. Another like bold prediction for this could be like, they move Julius Randle midseason. I think they're almost going to have to, because like a big part of what Julius Randle gives you is just that ability to eat up possessions because of how like gifted he is as a ball handler and mismatch nightmare at the 4. But you have Jalen Brunson. You need to keep giving RJ Barrett reps and talent, and you just signed him to an extension where you have him under team control for 5 years. I think that this is just setting up for a Julius Randle trade at this point, given some of the commitments they've made in the last few months.
The funny thing is, if they had traded Julius Randle during the offseason, I would have made one of my bold predictions that RJ Barrett is an all-star, just because the amount of space it'll open up for him to drive, it'll just expand his mid-range and his attack game more, and he would just pile up enough points per game that he would be a really good candidate for it.
I think it's going to be year 5 now. RJ Barrett All-Star year 5 instead of year 4, but that's fine. RJ looks like a legit, maybe bottom end All-Star, but he looks like a top, 35 player in the league at his ceiling, I think. And that's great. And that will probably end up being maybe he ends up being more. Maybe he ends up continuing to develop positively in the same way that DeMar DeRozan did over the course of the first like 8 years of his career, basically. Honestly, like DeMar just keeps getting better, right? Like it's not even just 8 years. He keeps adding different things to his game. When he got to San Antonio, he really added like the passing ability that he had kind of honed later in his Toronto career. So I don't want to limit DeMar like that, I guess, either. But, RJ has that same worker mentality that I think could lead to long-term development and success. So, yeah, I think that my prediction is that the young guys for the New York Knicks prove so good that the team ends up having to move the vets out in order to accommodate the younger guys that are on this team. And maybe it leads to the 10 seed, the 9 seed, maybe it leads to just a more coherent direction. But I think that we look back on this Knicks season as a positive, even if they don't necessarily like win more than 38 games or something like that.
That'd be amazing if Knicks fans could look at a 37-win season and be like, oh, this is a nice step in the right direction. That would be truly remarkable maturity.
Legitimately, like, I think if they move Randall and move like Fournier and like really embrace the youth movement, I think Knicks fans would like really like that. I think the Knicks fans are like very connected to this young group of players that they've drafted and grown with a little bit. And like, we have barely mentioned like Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes looks really good as well. Like, I think Knicks fans are very connected to this young group of talent. And because of that, I think they would be okay with that if that was to happen.
I mean, it would just be so exciting to see Knicks fans watch a playoff game. That would be very, very exciting.
I'd love it. That'd be great. I'm all in on like Knicks fans' happiness. I really enjoy like when the Knicks are good, because like Knicks fans are some of the like craziest, best people. And again, craziest people on the planet in terms of rooting for their team. And I mean that like lovingly in a really positive way. So, Jared, I think we've gone through 6. We've gone through 5 at this point. We said we had the same number 1 bold prediction here for the East. Do you have anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything you need to like say with some confidence here moving forward?
No, I mean, what I like about the East this year is there's 8 teams that you could see being in the top 4 potentially. So it does feel a lot more open. I'm just really rooting for the Magic to make the play-in game. That would be so much fun.
Yeah,
it'll probably be a disaster once they get there, but it'll be fun.
Well, I think that like that's, we mentioned before we started recording, like it was hard to come up with bold predictions in the East this year. And a part of why it was hard to come up with it is because it does feel like there's more parity in the East. So like trying to come up with something that seems bold is a little bit difficult, right? Like it doesn't feel wildly easy to come up with something where people are like, oh, that's not bold. That's like, that could easily happen. Right. And I don't even know that what we said is like all that bold, but like, it's complicated, I feel like, right?
I mean, thinking that Tom Thibodeau is going to start playing young guys, that's pretty bold.
I know. I tried.
That's pretty insane of me.
I tried to come up with something. I tried to come up with something good. Jared, as usual, have you watched anything good recently on TV, movies, anything good?
No, I mean, I watched the Charlotte Hornets play twice this month, so I haven't seen anything good.
I said
good. I finished watching Power. Finally actually finished that show. I don't know if it's a good show, but it was very fun. I was addicted to watching it, even though it was one of those shows where it was tacky half the time. But then credit to Power for a show that's really tacky a lot of the time. They definitely fooled me a lot of times on the twists and turns, which is something I like. I'm one of those people that watches those kind of like crime dramas or spy thrillers being like, all right, let's see if I can figure out where this is going. And they definitely have fooled me a few times for sure. So I definitely recommend people watch Power. It's a ridiculous show, but it's really fun.
Yeah, I've never watched Power. I do tend to enjoy like the silly shows a little bit more than some people do.
Well, that's silly.
Yeah, I might have to go down this road of Power. Yeah, that's all I've got. I'll be back tomorrow, honestly, with another episode because we're doing Eastern Conference and Western Conference bowl predictions back-to-back days just because it felt like the way to do it. Jared, do you have anything coming up that you want to plug? Anything exciting? Tell the people where they can find you, etc.
Yeah, you can find me on The Athletic, covering the Celtics and the NBA there. I've got a feature coming soon about Marcus Smart that is about off-the-court stuff that I think will be really interesting and might make you cry.
Oh, God. Jared.
I'm going to be sappy.
Why are you pulling the heartstrings, man? Come on.
Hey, man, the heartstrings got to get pulled before we start talking about basketball.
Yeah, so I'm just working through preseason stuff at this point, as I'll say on the next episode, but just keep it locked here and we'll keep you updated as that stuff gets released. Until next time,